display name.
Hey everyone, hello.
Hi, how
Hello.
are you doing?
Hey, hello.
Yep, I'm good. I'm good. How are you guys?
Yeah, very well,
Very
thanks. I
good.
think you came last time, didn't you?
Yep, you removed me.
Yeah, that's fine. That's the Adhan time, yeah? Time for Asr. Where are you calling
So,
from? This time?
oh yeah, India. I'm also proud Tamilian apparently. So,
Okay, good.
Very good.
By the way, do you agree with your Tamil friend, Hindu friend who called us just earlier that all the gods are from Tamil, from
No,
South
she
India?
said majority. She said most of
This
them.
is the majority, yeah.
Yeah,
In
she
fact,
said
she
majority.
mentioned the names like Shiva and
yep.
Krishna and all of those people as well.
Okay, so what she referred Murugar, which who happens to be the father of Tamil language, the creator of Tamil language, more or less. And if he is the person who created Tamil, and his father Shiva should also be Tamil, that's your understanding. But I'm not an expert in that, so I don't want to
Okay.
get beaten up by Tamil people. So I'll keep quiet.
Okay. All
Well,
right.
they don't know you,
That's
so
it. Yeah.
I think you're
Okay.
safe.
Great. Yeah, that's good. And that's actually a smart thing to do. Yeah. Don't walk into things you don't know about. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. So what's on your mind today? Display name. What is on your mind today?
I had two interesting topics, but then I liked your topic, the suggestion that you made. I thought, okay, let me just roll with that. That was far more interesting than what I had regarding the what Jay the Mexican started. So how do we differentiate, or how do we use development as a criteria? You mentioned about science or technology, two fields.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was interesting. But rather than speaking as a whole, I wanted to specifically talk about two or three countries. So
Okay.
let's take, I'm from India. So yeah, India as well as Pakistan, and we have Bangladesh as well. Almost all
Mm-hmm.
three countries had independence at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And all three countries pretty much had the same starting point. But one country happens to be far more advanced than the other country. So since you mentioned, okay, you could answer if at all that discussion comes in, that would be better discussions, what you suggested. So I thought, let me just discuss on that.
Right. But the context, this channel of ours, the context is always in the question in the realm of theology, of course, right?
Hmm.
Not necessarily politics or economics. So if you
Hmm.
could finish the question off, really is to what extent has religion or not contributed to this? Yes.
Sure. Maybe I can add another point to it. So, at least to my understanding, Hinduism or religion in India is highly dependent on cultures and traditions, which happens to be the foundation of the religion itself. Whereas Islam, again, Pakistan, again, it's built on Islamic tradition and values, and the cultural difference or what the culture values have, that also plays a major role in the way day-to-day functions happen as well. Is it fair to say that Hindu civilization or Hindu traditional cultures have a far more superior influence on its people than that of a neighboring country, which has significantly less influence in their culture or their growth generally?
I wouldn't say it's Hinduism. I mean, look at India today. Mostly the reason this constitution itself is secular and not Hindu,
Hmm.
it gives you a glimpse of what India wants to become.
Hmm.
It does not choose as its leaders who are, experts in Hinduism or scholars
Hmm.
in Hinduism. Its constitution is not Hindu. Its
Hmm.
leaders are not primarily Hindu, as
Hmm.
as being scholars and so on. I don't mean like the riffraffs we have now. So
Hmm.
what I'm saying is that the reason India became successful, number one, if you look at the population of India, it even combine India Pakistan and Bangladesh, it'll still exceed it. Okay, so it's got immense manpower. In terms of the place itself, the place itself is much larger. Um,
Hmm.
take China for example, next door. Why is
Hmm.
China more successful than India? They don't have Hinduism. So if you're
Good
going to use
question, but
Hinduism as your bar and standard, and I've noticed this from most Hindus, they will only compare these two neighbors, not the other neighbor who's more successful than them. It shows that you are insecure in your comparison, even because if you
not
truly
necessarily
were,
because
let me finish, my friend, and then you can
sure,
come in.
sure.
If you truly were doing an objective comparison, you would look at all the neighbors, including China. The
Yeah, but that
reason,
wouldn't
the
actually
reason,
be.
wait, I haven't finished yet. The reason you don't compare with China is because they beat you on every ground, in every single statistics they beat you on. Okay, where there's wealth, where there's in terms of production, in terms of their. In fact, India probably imports much more from China than it exports to China. So there are many factors. Look, every country, at one point they might have had a, a golden era, including India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, when they were one country. Yeah, it was the Mughals who actually excelled their GDP than anyone else in the time of Aurangzeb. It was the highest in the
That's
world.
wrong.
Yes,
Not really.
highest
That's wrong though.
GDP in the entire world, and that was
No,
what
that would be the Sangha period.
the Mughals, who are Muslims, are the ones who actually initiated the success of India. It wasn't the Hinduism, because the Hindus before
Again,
them,
incorrect.
did not do much in terms of GDP in comparison to the world. So
Again,
please,
that would
we
again
need
be
to take
incorrect
things
though.
into perspective and not try to just look at the current situation and say, okay, these countries are bad because they're Muslim, this country is good because it's Hindu. It's nothing like that. There are a lot of factors which come into play.
Okay, for my answer to those
Yeah, please.
statements. So first thing is, why do we don't not take China? Is because China and India are not the same. Nor Pakistan and China are the same, because I'm talking about the starting point and the continual point over here.
No,
India
but
and Pakistan
Bangladesh's
started at
starting
the
point
same
was
point.
1971. Bangladesh
Okay, then
didn't become independent in 1947.
let's take India and Pakistan, and that's far
Yeah,
more
but why?
accurate than.
The
So
question is
India and
why?
Pakistan,
Why are you comparing only two countries?
because that's the starting point. China
If you're
did not
going to
have a.
compare Islam, the Muslim
I
world
thought
is
we were gonna let me
massive in
speak when.
comparison to India.
Wait,
Okay,
I was
why are you
under the impression you're
comparing
gonna let
only
me
these
speak.
two countries? That's the thing. It's like
Am
me
I allowed?
comparing. It's like me comparing
Okay.
India when it was extremely poor. Yeah.
So you made your statements. Can I make my claim?
Yeah, but I
Rebut
want to
those things
know,
first.
because I want to know why you're focusing only on one country.
I would actually say
For
it if
some
you let me.
reason, Pakistan lives rent free in every Hindutva head for some reason.
Okay, I'm not sure why the term Pakistan offends you so much, but yeah,
It
what
doesn't
I'm trying to
offend
say
me.
is
It's just is the fact that you have to mention only Pakistan every time. Your news anchors,
exactly because it makes
your
sense.
politicians, your Hindutva, all of them. Pakistan lives rent free in their heads. Why? Why are you so obsessed with Pakistan?
So if I can answer the question again,
Go
so
on.
the starting point remains the same. China and India doesn't have the same starting point. Pakistan, India has the same starting point, because and they both had a similar structure in terms of their education, in terms of their what do you call it, until 1950 or 55. Pretty much they had similar with the government system or how things were on. They both were under the same rule for a longer period of time. So everything about these two countries were identical. So it's only fair to use Pakistan as a comparison, not China or Europe, any other country, because they didn't have any similarities at that point of time. Now taking them off from the starting point, and we put
What do you mean
Pakistan
by
and
starting
India
point? Are
side.
you talking about the independence? Is what you're saying?
Independence, correct,
Okay,
from the
so you
time
know
of
how many
independence,
countries in the
or the
world got
separations.
independence in 1947? Do you think there are other
Again,
countries which, or
do they
thereabouts?
all? Again,
I want to
I
know
have to
what's your
speak here to
obsession with
explain.
Pakistan. I really want to know.
I'm just trying to make that claim, but you're not allowing me to. So they started at the same point. They're the country in the same region, just side by side each other. They're pretty close, and yet one country landed in the south, in the dark part of the moon. The other country is still doing whatever it's doing. And in terms of GDP growth as well, India just surpassed, or not just recently surpassed, Britain as well in overall GDP, right? Not the per capita, but yeah, across GDP as well. But whereas Pakistan again behind. The growth of India again is significant, and it's evident throughout other countries. We are part of the G20, where we signed a deal with the the Middle East as well as Israel, other countries, for a better trade route, which solved the bottleneck problem which the world had for 150 years. So that's again something which India was part of, not Pakistan. Again, they were not allowed in that as well. Isn't not allowed. It's more like they were not part of that. So it's evident that India is doing better than Pakistan,
Yeah,
and there has to
you
be a
know,
cultural
I'll
significance
tell you the
because of
same
the
thing.
way they operate.
I'll tell you the same thing I told the Mexican. Both of you are focusing on materialism. Why is
Isn't that the
materialism so
entire world about?
important? Why is materialism so important? When you look at every Hindu sage, they prefer to stay away from materialism. Whether it's whether it's even the Buddhists, for example, even if all of those religious people in India, if you're going to focus on Hinduism, then all the Hindu sages, they were mostly staying away from materialism. Okay, but you
So
Hindus today, you're obviously, with the luster of the West and the wealth that you see in those countries. That's the reason you see many Indians, queuing up in front of the embassies of the US and the UK to go and work over there, because India doesn't give them that much opportunities. Even today, if you
Another
go,
false
let me
statement.
finish. Let me finish. Wait a minute. Yes, and I'm not saying this doesn't happen in Pakistan or in Bangladesh or other places. It does, of course. Okay,
Yep.
because everybody is looking for greener pastures, and they all are economic migrants. Okay, the reason they want to go away from India, okay, it's not because India landed a satellite in space or on the moon or on the Mars. That's not the thing. India largely is still a poor country. Okay, it's still as at the bottom of the hunger index. Do you know that?
Yeah, if you had 1,000 year of Islamic invasion and
No,
then
no,
a
wait, wait,
200
wait,
year
wait,
of
wait, wait, wait.
British
Don't give
invasion,
them
you would
excuses
also have
now,
been in the same
because you were very
position. But
proud of the
would you not?
150 years and all that. But as soon as I mentioned the hunger index, you want to make excuses about the
Not
invasion and
excuses.
all that.
I'm just
Of course,
showing you from where we started, how fast we moved. If we did not have an
doesn't
Islamic
matter. But
invasion of
for you,
1,000 years
success is
or a British
materialism.
invasion, we would be better.
Have I analyzed you correctly? Your base is success, and that success is based on materialism. Am I right?
Incorrect. It was development, because that's what Muhammad was talking about, scientific development. We started with the scientific development
No,
concept.
it wasn't
The
started
GDP
with
was just,
scientific development. In fact,
I
you'll have no scientific development if you're a poor country, because your main focus would be to feed the hungry, okay, to uplift their poverty. But if you're going to
that
focus
would be
mainly on science
one-dimensional thinking,
and
was
let
it?
the other people starve to death, then that wouldn't be moral, would it?
So you're
So,
telling me a country, when they focus on the development, they just stick, okay, let's just take care of the food first. Let's leave all the other things
no,
aside.
I'm saying
Because
there are
no country would
priorities.
do that. That's a really
No,
bad way
a
to
good
organize a
leader,
country, though.
a good leader will prioritize what is imminent at that time. For example, let's take for example a small family. If the family is hungry, okay, would they be spending more time in science development? Let's say they were all educated. The first thing on their mind, okay, to even focus on the science experiments they're doing is to fill the stomach, because that's the main priority.
Funny you
To
have to say
survive,
that.
you need food. Okay, so this
Funny
is
you
a
have to
base
say that, right?
necessity.
Could I
It
just
is a
interject
human
for just
right.
one quick
No.
second?
Yes.
Display real quickly, bro. What I
Mhm.
really respect the conversation, man. The one thing I just want to caution you on is when you say, "Oh, we had these invasions of X, Y, Z," you know, and you had said that there's just a one-dimensional train of thought when Brother Hashim was giving you his sharing his thoughts with you, bro.
Mhm.
It seems to me that you're under this impression that under a perfect world, that you guys would be above all, right? And what we're saying is, if we take a look at these things that transpired, you know, there was also invasions back and forth from everybody's side, right? So the only way to really look at it, and again, this is just from my personal point of view, the only way to look at it is, what are the fundamental teachings? And if we go back to these fundamental teachings, then you can see which one of them would stand for justice, which one of them would stand for truth, and so on and so on and so on, right?
And development.
And development. Absolutely.
Correct.
Absolutely, bro.
And
So like,
that is the only thing I'm focusing on. And development part
well,
comes in.
if that's the case, if you are focusing on that, then why not take a look at what the teachings say and then try to project from there, right? So like, you're insinuating a lot of things because of current events or past events that were not necessarily religious, but rather either politically motivated or something.
Isn't that not called data analysis?
Yeah, but you're
Isn't that how data works in the first place? You analyze the
because
past,
you're
the
dealing
present,
with
the ongoing
garbage
trend, and you project the future.
No, because you're dealing with garbage in is garbage out. So the way that your data is being analyzed is you can analyze it fine, but what you're actually analyzing and how you're drawing to your conclusion is what's being skewed, and that's what's messing you up. So what I'm recommending is go back, way back, right, and to the absolute source of the beginning of whatever it is that's in question. So for example, go back to the Quran. We can take a look at what the Quran and what the Sunnah say in regards to whatever, right? And then you can look at that and compare it with the data that you've gathered and say, oh, wow, you know what? This really wasn't Islam. This was this. Or you can say, oh, wow, this really wasn't biblical. This was this, just as examples, right? So I would encourage you to think that way rather than to say, oh, well, we're here now, and in hindsight 2020, we would be way better off, you know. So like, let me put my position. My position is, if we followed God's rule, everybody would be better off. everybody would be better off. We'd be living in an absolutely harmonious society. Things would be completely balanced. But the nature of human beings is to cause corruption, right? And to try to take things into their own hands and then do it in excess. So we're at where we are now, right? And if the more that we veer away from God's rulings, the more corrupted we will become, meaning like our lands, you name it, dude, our financial systems, the pollution, I mean, you name it, right? So go back to the source of what actually is God's rule. How did he present himself and his rulings? And then you'll come to the truth. What you're doing right now is really complicated, and it's neither here nor there, bro. So
well, here's what I would differ from, because your assumption, what your argument entirely is based on religion, and you pretty much say, okay, it is end of the day, doesn't whatever you said doesn't matter. What's in Quran, what's in Sunnah, that's exactly how I'm gonna approach. Doesn't matter what data I have outside. I'm not gonna consider. That's your approach. What I'm trying to say is, because I'm Hashim.
What he said.
Let me finish. I was quiet the whole time.
You're
I was quiet the
misrepresenting
whole time.
But you're misrepresenting him.
misrepresenting
so like, don't do that, man. If I said that,
okay,
I would have said it, but I didn't say that at all, dude. But carry on. Go ahead, bro.
Well, that's the understanding I had from that conversation.
Okay,
Maybe it's
then
my
that's
mistake, but that's the
fair.
understanding
Then
I
say
had
that.
from the
Say,
conversation.
this is how I
Okay.
understood it. Or say, am I understanding you correctly? You know, and then I'm happy to clarify, bro. But you know, don't say something I didn't say.
Sure, if I did that, I'm sorry. So let me just go back to what Hashim said, that the only best time the Indians had in terms of development or in growth was actually in the Mughal period, which is completely incorrect, because I said I'm a
I
Tamilian
didn't
too.
say the only,
And
you're
it's
misrepresenting me. I said they had the highest GDP
okay, the highest,
around the
okay, the
world
highest
at
probably.
that time during the Mughal era. That's what I
Sure,
said. Okay.
sure. And again, as I mentioned, I'm a Tamilian too. So every Tamilian knows this particular. Again, this is passed to us by tradition and culture, the way we just carry forward those. And it states that the Sangam period, the second Sangam period, where the Indian GDP was at the globally 25%. We were highest at that point of time, right? So that is the Sangam period. There are two Sangam periods, if I'm mistaken. Again, I'm not fully well versed, but I have the basic understanding of those things. The Sangam
Sorry,
period
which
has
Sangam
and had
period are you
been
referring to? Whose era was that?
the second Sangam period, I'm guessing, is the Cholas, though. Rajaraja Chola and the
And
Rajendra Chola period.
wait a minute. Did the Cholas invade other countries?
Not for religious purposes.
What
Trade
purpose?
purposes, yes.
No.
So,
Why
but
would he invade?
yeah,
Why would he invade someone for trade purposes?
so
That's
there
silly.
was one of the countries in the no, that's not actually. If you understand the bigger picture, it wouldn't be
I said
silly. So if
invade.
there was
Listen to the words, because you're talking too much. Maybe you're not focusing. They invaded.
you
The Cholas invaded Indonesia, and they invaded parts of
why
Malaysia at that time
why
as
you
well.
said invade, but why did they invade? What was the concept of
Yeah,
invasion?
obviously for
Right.
wealth.
So
Because at that time they
not
would invade
really.
countries
That's
to
where you're
gain
misinformed.
wealth.
That's where you're misinformed. So
Why did they
this
invade?
happened
Tell
when the
me.
Cholas were actually dominant. Cholas were dominant in the navy fleet, where the trades happened to navy fleet. And one of the kings, I'm not sure which country it is, I think somewhere around the Sri Lanka, Indonesia, or the Maldives part, where the trade routes were blocked and the ships were stopped. And this led to a war between those two kingdoms, which then further spread across, where then the Cholas went and conquered several parts of the Southeast Asia. So yeah, the initial part was for the trade. The trade was stopped, and they were dominant in this naval area, and they went and ensured that the trade is never blocked again.
Okay, so
That
basically
was
what
it.
you're saying is that if a country does not want to trade with the Cholas will by force want to trade with them. Is that what you're saying?
Again, you're misrepresenting me,
I'm
because I didn't
asking you a
say
question, bro. Calm
no.
down. By
What
the
I
way,
was saying again.
it was a king named Rajendra.
Yeah, so actually his father Rajaraja Chola was a
Yeah.
prominent one either. Rajendra Chola was famous, yes. So
Yeah.
this happened because one of the kings who actually took over the fleet, as in they had a battle, or they just seized goods and all those things. That's when this entire thing started. So it was nothing but a defensive reaction by
No,
a
they didn't
country
seize
which
any
was
goods.
actually defended.
They didn't let them trade. That is what you
No,
said
that's
earlier. Now we change your story again.
no. I never said that, and I don't know if I've said that, but if I did, let me
Yeah, you're
clarify
talking
that it
too
was
fast. You don't
because
even
Listen,
know what
display.
you're saying.
The problem is you're talking so fast
Exactly.
and so quickly.
I have
You're not
a
thinking.
right of speech.
Yeah,
Yeah,
your
you need to
data
think.
processing is really bad.
You need
Not
to
Your
really.
think,
data
my friend.
My
output is good,
brain
but the
works at a
data
certain
processing
speed.
is
My
not
mouth,
that good. So you
maybe
need to
my
fix
brain
that
works at a certain speed.
computer.
Mouth cannot keep up with, I guess. Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Your processing speed is slow.
Yeah.
So
Get more RAM in you.
let me go back to a previous point, actually. So let me sort of bring this back. So look, the contemporary definition of success, i.e., what most people think of success at the moment, is usually, as Jay Mexico said, it's usually located around this idea of prosperity and financial well-being, right? Wealthy, am I wealthy? Am I able to, enjoy the luxuries of life? And for most people,
Am I respected be also a criteria? Am I respected worldwide? Would that be a criteria? As a
well, I'll
country,
get
am
to
I
those.
respected?
I'll get to those because respect is a funny word because it depends on which side of the fence you live on. But in the contemporary, let me just define first of all, because I think we missed the definitions earlier. So, prosperity and financial well-being is usually linked to most communities or most people with success, such as, do I have money? Do I have material things like a car, a house? Am I able to get access to credit or a credit card? Things like this. This is what's seen to most what I would call middle class families and wealthy individuals as a status of I am successful. They then typically transmit that or overlay that onto, well, this country that I live in has afforded me this level of status, therefore this country is successful. This is usually the thinking. Stop me if I'm making a mistake here, but this is usually the line of thinking most people have. And it's valid. I mean, in terms of a secular worldview, this is a valid perspective to take. But on this channel, because of the perspective we take, because we take a theological and the philosophical perspective on things, and the Islamic perspective is different. The Islamic perspective says, am I able to successfully live in this world? And am I able to successfully prepare for my afterlife after I die? If I can do both of these things, then from a Muslim perspective, a Muslim is successful. And when a Muslim is only wealthy and ignores their afterlife, we call them a loser. Not we, Allah calls them a loser. In the Quran, Allah says, you have lost, you are a loser. Right? So we go back to scripture every time. The definition of success, the definition of what it means to be successful, all of these things are laid out for us. So when we speak to you or anybody else, this is the perspective we're coming from. How does your faith, your philosophy contribute to your ideas of success and prosperity? This is the question.
Okay, so from that point of view, we're talking about if the first half is not successful, we can still assume the second half is successful based on whatever good deeds you've done, where you get rewarded. That again is a fact which cannot be verified or validated. So my assumption of the second half is based on, which may or may not happen, is again based on a religious point of view. I'm talking about the first half where we're talking about a growth. Again, every single one of you, for example, you would pretty much have a job. The reason because that also plays a role. If we are talking only about the Jannah part, which means we could just die today and just go to the second half directly, but there is a role we have to play as a human being. We have a role to play, which is in Hinduism called Dharma. Everyone's got a Dharma. We play by the Dharma. And coming to that part of the conversation, how a country and Hinduism emphasizes more on the development part as well. And the reason why I'm saying not just Hinduism, I'm talking about the culture, not even the religion, the traditions, the cultures, the value. It has a higher impact in development. The reason because with the Islamic invasion, with the British invasion, the morale was complete on. When they left us, we were with 13% literacy rate and we had pretty much nothing. The entire world could have assumed that this country is done when the British left us. Right, 45 trillion pounds were taken from India. So the idea was this country is done, but it wasn't. We rose back. And that is because of a traditional and cultural value we have and how we look at things. And on the contrary, why am I saying Pakistan couldn't have the same or achieve the same development is only because their tradition values may not be inclined towards development, because as you claimed right now, sorry, not claimed, as you mentioned right now, there is too much emphasis on the religious aspect where I'm focusing more on the second part, so I don't really worry about the first part. Is that a fair way of saying it?
Absolutely not.
There is, but there's a few
By the
mistakes
way,
in here.
just
So
give
just
salam to Yamini.
Assalamu alaikum, brother Yemeni.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you for joining us.
Display name. If Pakistan didn't want to do any sort of development, how did they get nuclear weapons?
So you consider weapons and nuclear weapons as development and not?
Of course, yeah.
That's the only criteria.
Do you see any
No,
non-developed countries getting
hold
nuclear
on.
weapons?
How about the science program?
Okay, so
I'm asking you, why don't you answer this question instead of changing? Does
let
any
me go back. Brother Hashim, let me go back to the question. So you mentioned a whole list of points there, displaying it. So let me just sort of break these down very carefully. So you said, look, I think what I summarized from what you said is you're focused only on the worldly aspects of success. And if there is some, perchance, some side effect on the immaterial spiritual side, then that's welcome, but it's not the main purpose of success in your worldview. Is that right?
You almost got correct. Just want to make a small statement, just a minute, which is pretty much the same. The only difference is, for me, the work itself is spiritual. As in, the way my religion is tailored is that the work you do, your job, your dharma, is the spiritual part of it.
So being materially successful in your worldview, you're also spiritually successful.
Doing your duty is spiritual. That's how you get to God. By following one's own dharma perfectly is how you, or imperfectly as well, but rather than following someone else's dharma, when you follow your own dharma, that takes you to God. By doing my dharma as a human being, what I'm here to do, that is my spiritual path.
Yeah, but that's subjective for everyone.
Right.
Isn't Jannah?
Yes. So this is true for Muslims as well, right? I mean, but this doesn't hold us back,
Muhammad,
nor does it necessarily.
For a Hindu, a dharma is something that they define themselves. So,
sorry. Yes.
Yeah, it's not the same, because in Islam, our doctrine is well defined in the Sharia. Unlike Hinduism, it's very fluid, and they change from era to era.
And person to person. Yeah. So I think the proposition that you're making here, which is that, Pakistan, I mean, I don't like this, because, if you want to do like an economic analysis, you need to do an economic analysis with similar countries to your growth rates and GDP rates and population studies across the world, because we don't just trade with our neighbor. We do international trade, and we trade with the world. It's the reason we have something called the World Trade Organization and various sort of, import-export regulations and so on. So, this is actually an invalid comparison. But anyway, I'll go with your analysis, because that's how you want to do it. Pakistan.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, sorry to interrupt. Correct if my analysis is incorrect, because you say that this is not the right way to take the data. My assumption, again, what my classification is that they started at the same time, they had similar cultures at some point, and they continued the same period, which is what I took it. What else would you consider to be a fair point? So are we talking about Europe, for example? They started hundreds of years before.
Right. So
sorry,
look, if I was to take my addition to this would be a large part, a significant part of Indian success has been down to the globalization of its technical workforce. And that globalization, as we know, during the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s, involved the insourcing, the outsourcing of a lot of work from the West, which, if they had not done, with companies like Tata, Infosys, etc., if they had not done this, you would not be in the position you are in. So therefore, it is actually an invalid proposition to say, I will only take Pakistan as my comparator, when in fact the bulk of your success came from globalization.
Okay, if I agree to that statement, so again, we made a decision, again, intellectual decision that led to it. Why didn't the same thing happen with Pakistan? Did they not get the opportunity? Why didn't they get the opportunity? Why didn't the other countries invest in them? That would be the follow-up question. If they did get that, why didn't they make that same intellectual decision?
It's the manpower. Look at the manpower. Why don't you compare with China? The same manpower. Look how far back India is behind China. Okay, you have to compare like for like in terms of its population. One of the major power of any countries is manpower. And
Other than
India,
population, what is the like for like thing that
let
you're
me
going to make?
finish and then you can speak. Okay.
Okay,
So
sure.
why do you keep comparing Pakistan? This obsession with Pakistan is really baseless, to be honest. Just because they have the same tradition, just because they became independent around the same time, has got nothing to do with it. There are so many other factors which Brother Muhammad pointed out to you. If you were given, let me ask you this fair question: if you were given the option to make India a Hindu Rashtra, just like Pakistan became Islamic, it became a Muslim denomination and Islamic country as such, would you consider India to be a Hindu Rashtra, or would you leave it a secular country?
Sure, I'll answer the question. I just want to clarify what, apart from the population, what other is a like for like thing that you're referring with China? What is that we have
Yeah,
a
that
similar
is the
with
key thing.
China?
The population is the
The,
key
the,
factor.
okay, so location, labor force, and institutional regulation. Taxation, the ability to have stocks, shares, etc. These three things are the key differentiators economically for proper economic analysis. So if you actually want to have a proper
Perfect.
conversation, have a proper analysis, don't come in here with a straw man argument that is actually baseless and then say, okay, therefore we're better. If you're going to do
So
it properly, let's have a bigger conversation. I'm happy to have, it's something I know quite a lot about, actually. I'm happy to have that conversation, but this channel is not for that discussion, my friend.
Yeah.
This channel, as I've said, we're talking about how does your religion, your spirituality contribute to whatever proposition you have. You came in saying India is successful, Pakistan is not. India is because all of these things, but nowhere in there did you say, well, Hinduism contributed to this.
yeah,
You
but
never said
traditions
that.
and values. I said that.
That is the
That's how I
reason I
started
asked
the
you this
conversation.
question. So, display name, can you please answer the question? Would you keep India as a secular nation as it is now, or would you convert it to a Hindu Rashtra like the Hindutva who want it?
Sure. I don't have a preference, nor do I have a say. If it remains what it is right now, that's actually a perfect way for us to progress further. No one should have a
Exactly.
majority over anyone. No one should have a
Exactly.
control over anyone.
So you
Which
are
means
of
I
the,
am
so you are of the view that if it becomes a Hindu Rashtra, it will fail.
not really. I am on the view that if we take any one individual has power, there are chances of corruption, and that is a problem. That doesn't matter if it's
No, I wasn't
Hindu
talking about.
majority,
I
Muslim
wasn't talking
majority, or
about.
Christian majority.
Hold on, there'll always be a prime minister and a president. So it's not about one man having the power. The question is, would you have the Constitution of India as a Hindu nation, Hindu Rashtra, or would you keep it secular?
Okay, so when you say Hindu Rashtra, what are the what are things that fall into the Hindu Rashtra classification? So
So you don't know what's a
differentiate
Hindu
between secular
Rashtra,
Hindu
being a
Rashtra.
Hindu. Seriously, are you saying you don't know
Maybe we
what it
don't
means?
subscribe. Maybe you have a different understanding. I have a different understanding. So
That's
when
why
you
I'm
say
asking.
Hindu
What is your
Rashtra, what are the
understanding of Hindu
requirements?
Rashtra? What's your
Or just
understanding of
Hindu,
Hindu Rashtra?
just Hindu traditional cultures.
Just
But I
Hindu.
think,
You already have that.
yeah, but what is that we talk about in terms of
It means the
political
laws
thing that
are
would
based.
change?
It means your laws will be based on the Vedic understanding of the scriptures and so on. So when you
Example,
bring in Hindu Rashtra, it means
example,
everything
what
will be.
exactly?
What do you mean exactly? Let me finish at
So when you
least.
say Hindu
Bro, once again,
laws
you're
and
talking a lot, listening very less. Calm
you
down.
made a point. I just want to clarify
I
what
haven't
is
made the
that
point yet. You
law?
asked me about the Hindu Rashtra. I'm telling you.
Okay, I'll wait.
Okay. So it's the opposite of the secular nation which India is now, where every religion is supposed to have a free the freedom to express itself, the freedom of religion, well, with certain uh, obviously there is not complete freedom. There is obviously going to be restrictions to that as well. But once the Hindu Rashtra comes, then the main priority will be given to the Hindus. So it'll be based.
How?
Everything will be based on their scriptures, based
How?
on their religion, based on, so there
Like
won't be, for example, there won't be the freedom for the Christians and the Muslims to preach in India. So they can revoke that. Now,
there is no
when you have a
such. Is
nation,
it? Does it say in scripture that they cannot preach other religion in Hinduism? I'm not familiar with that. If it's that so,
again,
does the Hindu scripture say you cannot preach other
Hindutva,
religion in this country?
if you look at the RSS memorandum, you'll
But they're
find
not
even
Hinduism,
worse than
right?
that.
You
You'll
said
find even worse than that.
Hindu law,
Yes, no, I'm saying
but that's not Hindu
Hindutva.
law.
The Hindutva today is based on the RSS and the BJP. Okay.
Correct. So that's in that case, if you're talking about Hindutva, they are not
Yeah,
regarding
that's what
Hindu
gives the
Rashtra. Not
who
necessarily.
else
So
is
if you're saying
powerful
if
enough to bring it? They bring
that
this
argument
is
is
what
No,
as
no,
equal,
actually, Hashim. So actually, that's a fair point. So that's a good point. So, but I mean, usually, so Islamic Rashtra, Hindu. If it was Islamic Rashtra, for example, we would say it would be Allah, the Quran, and the Sunnah that would lead the way. You're saying a
Mhm.
Hindu Rashtra would be totally based on the Vedic teachings. However, the BJP and RSS isn't that.
Correct. Exactly.
The two
They're
are
not.
incompatible. Okay, so my question is again, Hashim's question is, if you were to have an ideal Hindu Rashtra based on the Vedic text, would
sorry,
it then
Brother
contribute
Muhammad, it
to a
won't be just the
successful?
Vedic text. Majority of
So,
the Hindus, Yeah, majority
Okay.
of the Hindus do believe in the Puranas. Okay, so it won't be just. So, for example, you
Sorry,
cannot.
what I meant by Vedic text is all of that body of
Yeah, you have
All
knowledge.
to be
literature,
careful because for
all
them,
Hindu
Vedic text
literature.
means the Vedas.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
all
Okay,
valid,
so the
all valid
Vedas, the
They
literature.
reject the
Purana,
rest
I
of
mean the
the.
Manusmriti, all of those. I need a term for all. What's the big term for all of that?
Just call it
Hindu
Hindu
stuff.
scriptures.
Hindu stuff. Keep it at that.
Subhanallah. Okay,
Yeah.
yes. So I would say
Because
your
the
scriptural
caste
text.
system is well integrated into this Hindu philosophy, the Hindu religion,
Okay,
or
okay,
the Sanatani Dharma. You cannot separate the caste system from it.
okay.
That's the
So the question
reason
I asked, display name again, Brother
Dr.
Hashim,
Ambedkar, who
is
actually penned the constitution, he became a Buddhist. He didn't
Mhm.
remain into
yeah.
Hindu because he realized
So
it was so well integrated. There's no way to get rid of it without,
But
completely
he did
destroying
get
it.
rid of it. But he did
He
get
did?
rid of it. He did get rid of the caste
How
system,
did he,
right?
how
Do you
did he
not?
get rid of it? Casteism is still
Yeah.
no,
very
it's
much
still in
strong
the
in India.
text, though. It's still.
See,
But anyway, let's go back to the point. Let's go back to the
it's in
point.
the place where it's beneficial to the law. I am from one of those Dalit systems as well. It's actually in a place of beneficial, not in terms of prejudicial as you claim it to be,
No,
which
no,
means
you're
that's a
getting the benefit.
misrepresentation.
The ones who are getting oppressed, they will not agree with you, Mr. Dalit.
Yeah.
Who's getting oppressed now?
So you're saying there are no Dalits getting oppressed?
No, if they're
Seriously.
getting oppressed,
Thank you.
which stats are referring to? Which stats are referring to they're getting oppressed? I mean, I haven't heard of one.
Oppressed for example, there are many still they are treated as untouchables.
When was this last incident happen? Where can I find this incident, by the way?
You are a data analysis. Maybe do some analysis in the
But
current
you made the
newspapers
claim,
where the
right?
stories
Shouldn't
are.
you be providing
Yeah,
the
I can
data
show you
for your
several newspapers where they
proof?
actually
I
were
thought that's how it
killing
worked.
Dalits, lynching them literally. So if you're living under a rock, your analysis will not
Um,
work.
could it, or was it possible that you may not have the full information? You may be going on assumptions by third-party
No,
information.
these
Is it
are
possible?
from
No,
the
no.
Indian media
So listen.
printed recently.
We had a program on this a little while ago, right? And Amnesty International, that reports
Yeah,
on this stuff,
can't
I think
believe
they
what
released a report a little while ago that
Mhm.
said there is still a mass perpetuation of casteism amongst
Mhm.
the Dalits in India,
Mhm.
right? So this is an external agency that has gone in. Now you
Exactly.
can agree or disagree with either of them.
do you mean
We're
exactly?
just
Okay.
telling you
Amnesty
that
International is a reputable
contemporary data.
institution.
So
Exactly.
I met a Christian once, I think it's a couple of years ago. So this is a very white person. I don't know if it's offensive to say white person. So this person was actually a Christian, and we had a discussion. She and her husband, and again they were trying to get me into Christianity. And when I asked her what was she doing in India, and she told me that I've come here to save save people from the sex slave that's going on. That's where is it happening? And I've just come here to find that out and go, okay, how do you know? We had some reports which this is what happened, but is it happening in Bangalore where I'm from? Like, no, it's not. So where is it happening? Somewhere maybe not. Why are you in Bangalore then? No, because the report said it's what it is. So they have an assumption, they have a report which comes out, and where is it from? What is it? And is it actually that person who I spoke to did not have information, which pretty much tells me the Western media is out there just to demean India and just put certain things in people's mind. But there is,
By the
I
way,
mean, I
why does
haven't.
it have to be only in your area for it to be valid?
Yeah.
Discrimination. What kind of
This person
This
was
happens.
fighting
So
for the
Hinduism in
sex slaves in
Nepal,
my place.
seriously?
Hinduism in
You are not
Nepal, for
even doing
example.
proper analysis. You are being biased
Yeah,
now.
I
Oh, if
So
it's
I
not in my
explain him.
city,
Let's go back to
then
the
it's
original
not
question.
anywhere
Hold
in
on,
India.
we've gone off topic. So the original question is, you came on saying, why is one more prosperous than the other? I think what we've concluded is that your foundation for your question was invalid, right? What you
that
need to really ask is, to what extent does spirituality, my spirituality, contribute to, if it was to run this country, would it contribute to its success or not? What we've demonstrated and what we know from our own history is, under the Islamic teachings, when you have a government, an Islamic government, that country prospers. We know this. We have historical evidence to prove this. We have no such evidence to prove that it is the case for Hinduism.
we do. I just told you about the
Where?
Sangam period. We have two major Sangam periods, and then the Islamic invasion happened, the British invasion happened. When the world thought we couldn't get up, we got up, and now we are leaving satellites pretty much in moon,
But
sun, and
as
all the
Brother
other
Hashim
places.
said, a lot of that was post hoc justification, and at post 1947, it was because your constitution was secularized, and that secularism
We didn't
and
have a
the
constitution to
adoption of,
begin with.
right, you didn't, but then
Before
the
that,
most of
correct?
the modern success. So if you're going to do success, you have to then separate pre 1947 and post 1947. Where is the success pre 1947, and where's the success
During the
post?
British era, I think that would again be a good question, because we'll have to refer to the 45 trillion pounds which the British took. If they didn't
No, but
have, if we
that's
didn't
what
have
I'm
the
saying.
kind of
That's what I'm saying.
success, they wouldn't be
That's
taking
what I'm
it.
saying. I agree with you. So you can't just sort of broad brush over this. If you actually want to do proper analysis, especially on history, you've got to take each period on its own terms. What was happening? Who was there? You can't just say because we are now somehow, done something good. Therefore, all of history is now therefore the same. This is invalid. It's
Okay.
incorrect, and it's
Okay.
it's not
So
right. Good. Thank you
sorry.
for
So
accepting that.
I mentioned about the British where they took 45 trillion, and that is the example why we were successful before. And before that, we had the Islamic invasion. I can read out a passage from this Muslim named Ahmad Nitlag. I couldn't pronounce it. I think from Muhammad Ghazni's person, and he described Mathura and how rich it was at the time of invasion. The long discussion goes on where he talks about how rich
Yeah,
and
certain
how many
areas were
ornaments were
rich.
available.
So what's the
Right.
point?
So even during that period of time, we were
Yeah.
successful. We were
By
wealthy
the
and
way,
as a country.
if it wasn't for Ghazni, okay, the Mongols would have overtaken India and looted all of you guys.
These are all
So you should
ifs and
thank some
buts,
of the
but they never
Muslim
happened.
Mughals who stopped the invasion of the Mongols from of India.
You
And
know,
also,
Mughals did.
by the way, we were discussing this the caste system. You heard of
Mongols
the
invaded and
Devadasis in
failed
the south?
several times, right?
Yeah, have you heard
Mongols
of the
did invade India and
Devadasis
have
in the
failed several
south?
times.
The
Oh,
sexual exploitation of women who are called the Devadasis, which still I think it's
you,
practiced
you
in
mean
some areas.
dances? You
No,
mean
no, no, no.
dances
These
and
these
temple
were
dances?
these were lower caste women who were sexually exploited since childhood, and
Okay.
it was in fact in the south it was the Cholas which you mentioned earlier who practiced this in their
There
region.
was a good long jump from the discussion we had, but I see where you're trying to divert this. But
No, this
if we
is
can go
I'm
back,
talking about. Remember about casteism,
if we could,
about the
but
Dalits.
it
You said it's
wasn't.
not there anymore.
We're
Okay,
talking about the wealth and development, but yeah,
yeah,
let's go back
because
to the
Yeah.
thing.
So
for me,
look,
development includes,
I think
okay,
Mohammed, I'm having a
elimination
really
of
honest
all this
conversation,
oppression
and
in the
if we can go
community and
back
the
to that'll be
society.
better.
That's what development. You have to uplift the whatever the oppression that's happening there. You need to uplift those people. In fact, you're a Dalit. You should know this. Okay, so development
Thanks for
is
the personal
also
attack.
the fact
Yeah,
that
that was
today
really
there are many
nice.
rural areas
So
where
it
there's
wasn't a
still
personal attack. Hold on.
they
Let me
can't
come back in
enter
here.
temples
So
anymore.
if you keep emphasizing this, since you're Dalit, you should know this. That's again a personal attack, because I made a statement of what I am. Does not give the right to
Why is it? No, I
constantly
said
point
you
it
should
out.
know this. As a Dalit,
That's
you
not
should
the
know
way.
this.
See,
That's
when
what
I
I'm
said
saying.
something, you
It's not a
felt
personal
I
attack
was
on you.
wrong.
I'm
I
telling you because
misrepresented
you
you,
seem to
which
be in
means you are
denial.
doing the same thing. I'm
No,
not in
you seem to
denial.
be in denial. Okay, once again,
Not
let
at
me
all.
ask you this: are the Dalits being exploited today?
They're not. I
Okay,
have
that's fine.
I
That
have
just
two
shows
books
you're in
which says
denial. Maybe you want to keep it
That's
that way,
fine because
but you're not a
there are
my
other
sincere person
reports
if you think that
from
Dalits are
other
being
my
people.
exploited.
education is free. My medical benefits are free. I have a reservation in terms of
Yeah,
my
we're not talking
education,
about
my
you
colleges, my
individually.
jobs. That as Dalit I'm talking about, right? We have all those benefits. I mean, I'm
What
not
if I
sure
show you an
where.
Indian newspaper showing that the Dalits are oppressed? Will you then reject the newspaper?
Not necessarily. So if you're talking about, are we talking about the 5% error, 1% error? Where are we talking about the error
I'm
rate?
talking about the
There has to be
Dalits.
margin. Yeah.
It's not about error rates display. Look, this is not a statistical
This guy's in
conversation.
denial, man. Completely in
Yeah.
denial.
So this is fundamentally the question. Really is when you talk about prosperity, as Brother Hashim indicated, it also means uplifting those at the bottom. I mean, you've heard of Amartya Sen, right? Do you know that name, Amartya Sen?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay, then you should read upon one of your own authors, Amartya Sen. He wrote a book called the bottom, something I think, the wealth of the bottom of the pyramid. Right?
Mhm.
Very very good book. Very academically actually written, and he was a very strong academic. And one of the things he says in that book is unless you uplift the people at the bottom of the pyramid, the poorest in society, you are not a successful country. You are not a successful nation. So the measure of success actually in Islam is actually one of the measures is as soon as you are wealthy enough, you are required to give something called zakat, which is a charity to make sure that you uplift the poor in your community, in your country. This is a law from God.
What if I say there's a
This
law
is
from
how we know.
government that makes me do it?
Hold on, hold on. Let me finish, please. We're talking
Yeah,
spirituality
sure.
here. We're talking Islam religion. So,
Mhm.
by definition, Islam has built into it the rules that will make an economy successful. Now, why are we not successful today in the countries that supposedly are Islamic? Mostly because they're not. Muslim, run by Muslim law. They're run by secular liberal laws in many cases. So we would say from our side, the reason for the lack of success is because they're not following what God said.
Okay. So if we talk about successful Muslim countries, out of 52, 53, we can say 5 to 7 successful Muslim countries, like predominantly Muslim.
Well, it depends on your success. I mean, these definitions are fluid. But look, I need to temporarily go away. I'll be back shortly.
Yeah,
You can carry on the conversation with Brother
discussion is
Yemeni and
just
Brother
going in
Hashim.
circles now. Somebody who is
Yeah.
in denial of his
But
own
disclaimer, look,
community.
thank you for joining, by the way. I think
Thank
the
you for having
discussion
me.
started off well. We sort of strayed off the path a little bit, but fundamentally, if you look up Amartya Sen, please look him up. He is a globally world famous author. If you
Yes, sir.
don't
I'll
know
definitely.
about him as an Indian, you should read about him. You really should.
Sure, sure. You mentioned about maybe some other day I can have a discussion. If that's offer still stands, I think I can get more research done. I can get back to you on
Well,
that.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, come back next time and we'll pick it up here or somewhere else. But remember, always in the context of religion and faith.
Sure.
This
Your
is what
religion
we do.
and yeah, sure, no problem. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Yep.
And
Take care.
this is a recent article, May 28. Yeah, brother, uncle beaten to death, now Dalit victim of sexual harassment dies after falling from ambulance. Did you say there was no harassment today? No oppression? Are you sure? You know, I can bring up tons of Indian newspapers which actually mention these things.